Chapter 5, A Feast of Figs. What predictions can we make from this chapter title? For days after that first encounter with the tiger, I rarely strayed further than a metre or so from Una's side, insects or no insects. I no longer wandered on ahead of her as I had taken to doing so often. I played it safe, riding up there on Una's neck where I knew I was out of danger, and from where I had a much better view and an early warning of everything going on around me. At nights, I climbed a lot higher into the trees than ever before to build my nest of leaves and branches, and Una would stay right below whichever tree I'd chosen all night long on lookout. I slept lightly, alert to the slightest rustle, half listening for him all the time. But as time passed and there were no sign or sighting of the tiger, I grew less anxious. I still slept high in the trees every night, as high as I dared to climb, and I hardly ever went anywhere on foot now, but that wasn't entirely because of the tiger. I had noticed that all the monkeys around me rarely came down onto the forest floor. It seemed sensible to follow their example, to keep out of harm's way. For me, as for them, the tiger was simply one of the many dangers lurking in the darkness of the jungle. Even by day, it was more often than not a dark place, a place of deep shadows, cut off as it was almost altogether from sunlight by the thick canopy of the trees above. Better to be safe than sorry, I thought. Sleep high, stay high. In a strange way, I actually found myself missing the tiger. I kept hoping I would see him again. More than that, I was even longing for it. As I lay there one night in my sleeping nest, I kept remembering the tiger poster on the wall of the classroom back at school. I could see it so clearly, lit by the afternoon sun slanting in through the classroom window. That tiger used to gaze down at me with the very same look in his eyes as the tiger Una and I had encountered on the jungle trail that day. There was a poem underneath the picture. We'd all had to learn it by heart for homework, but I could only ever manage to recite the first verse before drying up. I couldn't remember even that much now, but the first couple of lines did come back to me, and I spoke them out loud again and again, because I thought it sounded so much how the tiger had looked to me, as if the poet had been there and seen him with me. And anyway, I thought Una would like to hear it. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? I got a deep rumble of appreciation from down below, and I knew she'd be smiling away down there in the darkness. I wished now that I had learned it better so that I could have recited the rest of it for her. As I went to sleep that night, I tried to see the words again as they were printed on the poster, but all I could visualise were snatches of lines, bits and pieces. However, the harder I tried, the more I was remembering. I hoped it was all there somewhere, deep in my memory, lost for the moment, but not entirely forgotten. When we did see the tiger again, it turned out to be in no sense a repetition of the earlier standoff. There was no hissing this time, no trumpeting. This time he came wandering onto the track in front of us and looked back at us over his shoulder as if to say, "Are you going my way? That's fine by me." I was tingling with apprehension and excitement, and I could feel that Una remained wary too. She did not show it though. As she walked on, she never broke the rhythm of her stride. We followed the tiger through the jungle for most of that morning. After a while, I began to relax, more and more sure all the time that the tiger was not doing this because he wanted to eat me. It was simply because he liked the company. There could be no other explanation. He had the whole forest to wander in, and yet he had chosen to wander along with us. When Una paused to eat from time to time, the tiger would lie down in the shadow of the trees nearby and clean himself, then yawn, stretch out and wait until Una was ready to go on again. So at ease did I become that day with our new travelling companion that I felt I might even try to talk to him. But then I didn't seem to know what I should say. I mean, what do you say to a tiger? It was so important to say the right thing, but I couldn't find the right words. So I decided in the end to recite the poem for him, the bits I could remember anyway, because I felt the words were full of wonder and respect, and I hoped he picked up on that. Somehow, and to be honest, I have no idea how, when I began to recite the poem this time, every line, then every verse, all of it, just flowed from my memory, almost as if the poet was inside my head and speaking it out for me. Maybe because he too knew this was the right moment for his poem to be heard, that this listener was the one he'd written it for, the listener who mattered to him more than any other. I remembered his name then, suddenly. Blake. William Blake. It said so on the poster, right at the bottom. Tiger, tiger, burning bright, in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? As I spoke it, I so wanted the tiger to listen to me. I was encouraged by his ears that were turning constantly, backwards, forwards, this way and that. I recited the poem again, projecting my voice this time, so that the tiger should be in no doubt that the poem had been written just for him, and that I was reciting it just for him too. I was so pleased with myself for remembering it, I recited the poem over and over again to prove to myself that I really could do it, and to drum it into my brain so that I would never be able to forget it. So, why do you think Will would not want to forget this moment? And what do you think Will and Una will do next?